Welcome to the Life Coach Lounge. I'm Angela.
I'm Lisa.
And I'm Emily.
This isn't a podcast for coaches. It's for you, for real people navigating real life. It's lighthearted, it's deep, and it's grounded in faith, friendship, and purpose.
And once a month, you can join us in our virtual Life Coach Lounge on Zoom.
So pull up a seat. The Life Coach Lounge is open.
Hello and welcome to the Life Coach Lounge. Grab your favorite drink or lace up your walking shoes and come hang out with us. I'm here with Emily and Lisa, and today we're talking about something we as life coaches have a lot of thoughts about, our thoughts. But instead of talking about what thoughts are, we're flipping it. Today we're discussing what thoughts are not. Before we jump in, Lisa, can you remind everyone how they can connect with us?
Sure. You can connect with us at any of the links in the show notes. There are links to our personal websites. There are links to our Instagram page. There are links to our private Facebook group, which you 1000% want to be a part of. You have many options in which you can connect with us, and we look forward to when you reach out to us. We love that.
So we are Christian life coaches, all three of us, with one-on-one coaching practices. And I think some people believe that coaching is only for the rich and famous. And I mean, I'm sure the rich and famous do have life coaches, but it's actually for everyday women who want a safe, non-judgmental space to process their life and their circumstances, whatever they're going through. But we believe that you have in you all the answers and all the wisdom, and we can help you find it. Okay, girls, so let's talk about what thoughts are not. We all have thousands of thoughts every day, which is crazy to think about. And a lot of them are negative or have a negative spin. Why do you think that is?
The design of the human brain. The design of the brain is to kick in that survival instinct, which sometimes, more often than not, has a negative bias to it because your brain prioritizes threats to keep you safe. And at the same time, it doesn't always recognize what the threat is. So it doesn't have that context. So it's just going by what you are experiencing. So if you're telling it you're afraid, it's going to react like the lion is coming for you. So it's that survival instinct. And then you can throw in habits. We sometimes run into a default to negative emotions and thoughts, and certainly mental health can play into that, your environment. I mean, there's quite a few factors, actually.
That's what I thought about, is that our thoughts become just that default, that habit. And if we aren't in the habit of capturing those thoughts, taking a look at those thoughts, examining those thoughts, even understanding what the Bible tells us, that we can take those thoughts captive, I think that actually implies that we have a little bit of agency and authority over what we think about. And if you've never been presented with that idea, we all, I think, would have a tendency to get caught up in the same thought patterns, a lot of them being negative. And so it takes work to actually stop and capture it, take a look at it, decide on purpose if that's a thought that you want to keep thinking or not.
Yeah, so referencing that verse, I love the New Living Translation, which says to capture rebellious thoughts and teach them to obey Christ. So capturing our thoughts, it's something that takes practice and intention. And it tells me that our thoughts aren't automatically aligned with the truth, that we have a part to play in our thought life. So, okay, let's jump in here. Number one, thoughts are not facts. When I say thoughts are not facts, Emily, why do we so easily believe that what we think is true?
Again, I think if you haven't been presented with the idea that you can decide on purpose what you want to think, you just automatically believe that whatever it is you're experiencing is factual. And you could argue all day long about your experience being factual. But when you really break it down, again, examining that, okay, this is my circumstances. These are my thoughts about my circumstance. Does the circumstance and the thought, do they match up? Are they true? Right. I think in coaching, I remember, and we brought this up on the podcast before, that the facts about your circumstances is something that could be proven in a court of law. Everything else you're thinking about with those same circumstances is actually your thought or your feeling about them. So, again, examining what you're thinking about and being curious, is this a fact? Is this true? Getting perspective. So that's where coaching comes in. Sometimes you need somebody else to help you discover what's factual and what's not.
Yeah, and we also learned that when you think something, your brain automatically looks for evidence to prove that it's true. You know, you can have a thought about yourself, like, I'm stupid. And every time you make a mistake, yep, I just proved that again. Yep, I just proved that again. Or even if it's a thought about someone else, he's mean, he's so mean, whatever the thought is. And your brain is going to go to work looking for the evidence. And so if you flip that and choose a different thought, a kinder thought, maybe about yourself or about someone else, your brain will do the same thing. You will look for evidence that that is true. And so you can change how you feel and what you think and those habits. So, Lisa, if you were going to pull apart circumstances from thoughts, like we learned in certification, how would you describe that?
But to keep it really simple, your circumstances are what is happening in that moment. It's neutral. Because we're having, as Emily just explained, thoughts about the circumstance, we're going to keep the circumstance neutral. Emily also mentioned, like, can we prove it in a court of law? A lot of times, sure, but sometimes we have our own thoughts about the circumstances. So if you keep the circumstance neutral, and then your thought, if you think about your thought, it's just your interpretation of that circumstance. That's like the most simplest definition to that.
I know we've gone through the coaching model before, but the coaching model is that when there's a circumstance, we don't have an emotion about it until we have the thought first. So something happens, something is said, something's going on in the world, fill in the blank, whatever the situation is, then we have a thought about it, positive or negative, whatever it is. And then we have an emotion that comes from the thought. And then from that emotion, we act, react, or don't act. And then that's how we create what we create in our lives, the results that we have. Yeah, that's a great, just little reminder of the coaching model. Some people call it a creation cycle, a coaching model. And that is what we use as the anchor in our coaching sessions.
And can I just interject here?
Yeah.
As a CBT practitioner, if someone is in therapy and listening to this and you're familiar with the cognitive behavioral therapy technique, it's the same cycle that Angela just described. So a lot of times our brain wants to take that negative thought and make it objectively true. Do you know what I mean? Like, so for example, I missed my deadline today That might be the fact. You might have missed your deadline today. It's that like tagline that we tend to put on the thought, I missed my deadline today, so I'm worthless. I'm an idiot. I'm a failure. And then our brain shifts right into those feelings and then going to find every piece of evidence now to make that true. So while the circumstance, you missed your deadline today, yeah, you did that. It's sometimes I think when we work with clients, they're like, yeah, but it is true. Yes, it just gets a little sticky when you're explaining it to the person. So, like in CBT, that is like, if you think about it in a, like, let's take it to a basis. Circumstances are neutral, thoughts are the interpretations. And now we're going to reframe, like you said in that creation cycle, we're going to reframe. We're like problem solving. How can we like just change this ever so slightly so that we don't think we're worthless, an idiot, and instead, how can I fix this and prevent this from happening next time in the I missed the deadline scenario?
Okay, let's go to number 2. Thoughts are not prayers. And I heard this from one of our coach friends, Susan Shull. And I'm in a class of hers, and she said, thoughts are not prayers. And it was a mic drop moment for me. So I've been chewing on that for a couple weeks. So when I say thoughts are not prayers, Lisa, what's your reaction to that?
My initial reaction when you shared that with us in the Marcos was, I have to think about that. I'm not 100% sure that I agree. I'm also not saying that I fully disagree. And here's why from my own personal perspective. Where I am in my own faith journey, there are times when prayer for me is not like when, my mother would say, okay, time to go to bed now to say your prayers, and you get down on your hands, on your knees, and you sit at your bed and you put your hands together and you say, now I lay me, and you do the thing. Like that was very formal and kind of restricting to me growing up. And so I think as I'm moving through my journey, I feel like prayer for me can be not so restrictive and not so formal and be more inward thoughts. So I do think that I'm still working on that statement. Like I feel like I could have moments of silence where I have inward thoughts and longings that I am using as prayer that can occur at any time. It could be as I'm pulling into my driveway and I turn the car off and I just have a moment to myself, or you read something on the internet and you have a little thought about that, but it's a inward reflection. I feel like there are a lot of times during my day when I do have thoughts that are quiet moments for me, which I am interpreting as an inward, non restrictive moment of prayer.
I think you said that well.
I was also curious when you shared that, Angela. I was wondering if you could elaborate more on why it was a mic drop moment for you. What was impactful about it for you? How did you take that? And I'm guessing there was more to the teaching also, in not just those 4 words that thoughts are not prayers. So I would love it if you're willing to share what you learned, how that impacted you and where you were, yeah, just how that impacted you.
So the first thing I thought of when she said it was gratitude. And I thought about, when we're so quick to say, I'm so thankful it's sunny today, or, I'm so grateful my husband took the garbage out, or whatever. That's not the same as giving thanks to God. and separating those two things from each other. Obviously, having grateful thoughts is wonderful. I mean, I'm all in favor of that, but it's different than prayer. I think of prayer as talking to God, listening, and not just saying words or thinking thoughts that are aligned with right thinking. So, yeah, gratitude was the first thing that came to my mind. And it was kind of like, oh my word. Yeah. So when I say, I'm so thankful it's sunny today, just pausing and saying, thank you, Lord, that the sun is out today and turning that into a prayer.
So it was more like an opportunity for you to take that thought and turn it into a prayer. I like that.
Yeah. So one of the things I think about with prayer also like is ruminating, and maybe Emily, maybe you can kind of talk about the difference between ruminating and praying.
When I think of ruminating, I think of worry or obsessing over the same circumstance, trouble, challenge, whatever it is. And God says that we can cast our cares on Him. Like Jesus invites us to bring all of our worries, fears, whatever it is that we're dealing with to Him, and He will take it for us. He will carry it for us. And so rumination is not seeking that surrender piece. I think rumination is holding on to the worry that goes with that thing you're praying for. Prayer has that surrender piece. It has that I trust that God's going to work this out. I don't know how. And for me, if it's a really difficult circumstance, that fear and that worry doesn't just automatically melt away. I do feel a difference when I surrender it to the Lord, but it might have to be throughout the day when I, without even realizing it, pick it back up again and I'm feeling that worry. So that's what I think of.
I can't tell you how many times I've caught myself mid prayer praying from fear and not from faith. So, definitely an area to pay attention to.
It's not a one and done and there's no formula. I think that's the thing with prayer too.
Yeah,
There's no formula. Like I have walked alongside people that have struggled with even understanding the abstract concept of prayer. Somebody with a neurodivergent mind, like autism, or someone with maybe a mental health disorder. Like, so I'm really careful to just have so much compassion and curiosity. And I know that God has that same compassion for each one of us. So I just even want to say that to our listeners. If we say thoughts are not prayers and you're feeling like you're doing it wrong, don't hear it that way. That is not what
exactly.
we are saying. And God does not, He is compassionate and kind, and everybody's on a different journey. But it's good to, like, again, evaluate. This is a thought, right? We're thinking about God. How can we change that and transition it to a prayer, a surrender, and ask for help?
I love that you reminded the listeners, Angela, to be mindful when you're taking the time to pray in your own way, to recognize if you're doing it from a place of fear. I think that that is more common than not. And I know that's a thought, but I do think that things that so easily will just roll off of people's tongues, even if it's like tongue in cheek, like partial sarcasm, partial not, I'm being serious with you. But like if I said, girl, you better pray on that, like that is already going to make you feel a little defensive. And we know that if you're in defense mode, you're not praying from faith. You're just not. When I go back to like saying my prayers as a child, I feel like it was almost rote and not meaningful. And through no fault of like, I'm not blaming, I'm casting any blame on how I was raised or taught to do that. But I think it's a good that was a good reminder to pray from a place of faith and not from a place of fear.
Yeah. The other thing I thought of with thoughts are not prayers is good intentions. Good intentions of, someone asks for prayer and, you say, "Oh, I'll be praying for you," or, dropping prayer hand emojis on a Facebook post or something. And are we actually taking the time to pray? And I've just found that if I don't do it right then, I will forget. So that's just me.
And it can take like 30 seconds. That's what I've realized. I became convicted of this in the last couple of years that when I say I will pray for you, well, why don't I just stop and do that right then and there? Whether it's out loud with the person or 30 seconds in my own mind with the Lord. Like, yeah, it takes like 30 seconds.
Yeah.
It could take longer if you wanted to.
Yeah. So I just have a few ideas here of how we can turn thoughts into prayers. And one of the ways we can do it is journal our prayers. So write out our prayers and then pray them out loud, so that it is, not just journaling, but actual prayer. And then listening during our prayer time and writing down again what we are sensing God speaking to our hearts and receiving what God has for us. Okay, number 3, thoughts are not your identity. I feel like this is a big one, you guys. I had a thought about myself does not mean this is who I am. So, Lisa, what comes up for you when I say thoughts are not your identity?
So here's the thing. We are told by our friends, our family, society, like all the do this, study this way, eat this way, have spiritual guidance. This, like, there's so many things coming at everyone that it makes you feel a little like, am I doing this right? And so it's easy to make your identity, in my case, definitely pairs with my life sentence of, I'm not sure if I have a voice here. How do I share my worth with others and not keep suppressing it and questioning it? So, my identity piece has always been tied to something more materialistic, the job title, or how much money I made, or what does this number on the scale say today? That is where I have a long history of casting my identity and still struggle with today.
Yeah, I think we all do. I mean, there was many years where my identity was mother of 5. And then I became an empty nester and went, "Who am I?" I don't even know anymore. So, yeah. I mean, we all do it, right?
All those factors I was mentioning they're just like on repeat, right? So therefore our beliefs form. If we don't pay attention to them, we just stay there. We just camp out there and we take on that identity, even if we don't like it. And we're living in guilt and shame. It can so easily happen.
I agree with everything you guys both just said about the deeper issue of identity. And I also think it's really important as we have thoughts, because that's what we're talking about today, the little thoughts that are actually not so little. I think it's really important to pay attention to the language. To say something like, I am a procrastinator. Well, you're making that an identity. Instead, like anytime you're thinking, I am something, pay attention. Perhaps it is true that I often procrastinate on tasks I have to do. That doesn't mean I am a procrastinator. Like there's room to grow and change there. Or I am always late. Or I am lazy. again, there's room to grow there. Those are not identity pieces that you need to live out. So that's important, I think, to point out. When you hear yourself thinking thoughts or believing thoughts about yourself that start with I am, stop and pay attention.
Yeah. And make sure they line up with what God says about you and study what that is. That even if it is something you've proven true over and over again, even if it's something like saying, I am divorced, well, what else? I am a new creation in Christ. So we can change our thought to align with what God says about us. In at the life coach school, she talked about taking your thought and like holding it, like holding it in your hand and looking at it and observing it. And doing that kind of separates you from your thought. So you can just kind of be the observer of it and then say, does this really line up with what God says about me or who I'm becoming, who I want to be? And Joyce Meyer says, think about what you're thinking about. That's kind of her tagline. She loves saying that. So
I love that quote.
yes, think about what you're thinking about. Okay, anything else you want to add to? I feel like we could do a whole episode just on identity and identity thoughts. We could just talk forever on that one. Anything else you guys want to add there?
One thing that has been impactful for me, just like as a believer and as I was learning to grow in what God actually does say about me as a child of God, the book of Ephesians, especially the first and second chapters, you can go through there and you can see and really adopt so many I am statements. I am redeemed. I am forgiven. I am chosen. I am a child of God. There's so many identity statements just in that first and second chapter of Ephesians. So if you haven't ever read the book of Ephesians in the Bible, I encourage you to do it and show you what's possible to be seen as a child of God. It's just a beautiful truth bomb, really.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. Great conversation today. And to our listeners, we want to know what resonated for you. Do you agree with what thoughts are not, or do you not agree with that? Send us a DM, send us a message, write a review, rating, or better yet, join our private Facebook group and we will have the full discussion. We love having talks with you, and we do have our monthly virtual lounge. So you can be on camera with us and ask us anything you like. So I don't know if you were multitasking today or relaxing or watching us on YouTube. Hi, Mom. Watching on YouTube. We're so grateful you spent time with us. So we'll be back next week, Tuesday, with another episode of the Life Coach Lounge. And until then, I will chat with you girls in the Marcos later today.